Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Very often, a challenge of reporting what's happening on Ukrainian front lines is that even if you know what's happening there, even if you report on this and draw nice pictures of what's happening and show videos, very often people are still following this war based on the maps like this one from the deep state team. So no matter the fact that I've reported multiple time for the last couple of weeks that Ukrainians are actually counterattacking in Kupiansk, that Russians are actually not having such a major success, in any case, people would still look at this map resource, and if it would be a Russian resource, then all of this would be read already. Then they would say, it's like, well, Georgie, you're just spouting nonsense. Well, it's nice to see when the reality finally catches up, because Deep State finally have shown that, yes, indeed, Ukrainians have achieved major success in this area. Ukrainians counterattacked the Russians over the last multiple weeks. They were squeezing out their logistics in the area, and now there is some 200 Russians that are fully encircled in the city of Kupiansk and soon to be cleansed. Russia has lost this direction pretty decisively at this point. And the absolute cherry on the top is that the person that will tell you about this is none other than the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky himself, because he reported literally from the zero line, the line of contact. It's just a couple of kilometers from where the Russians are. This is a complete unsafe zone. And he arrived there clanking his bowls made of brass, showing up that no, Russia will not have Ukraine and Ukraine will be fighting back.
Бажаю здоров'я. Сьогодні Куп'янський напрямок, наші воїни, які тут досягають результатів для України. Багато росіяни говорили про Куп'янськ. Ми бачимо, Я привітав хлопців, дякую кожному підрозділу, всім, хто б'ється тут, всім, хто знищує окупанта. Сьогодні надзвичайно важливо досягати результатів на фронті, щоб Україна могла досягати результатів в дипломатії. Саме так це працює. Всі наші сильні позиції всередині країни, сильні позиції в розмові щодо закінчення війни. Дякую кожному воїну. Пишаюся вами, дякую всім нашим сухопутним військам. Сьогодні виключно ваш день. Дякую, хлопці, слава Україні.
And absolutely sweet tears of anger are running down the cheeks on their social media by the Z propagandists that are reporting on the situation. Quote, they're reporting that the bloody clown Zelensky is back in Kupiansk, which according to Gerasimov's report has been captured by our troops. He's standing there calmly, filming and commenting, completely unafraid. What should he be afraid of when the Russian government promised the Israel leadership? And if you're wondering why he's talking about the Israeli leadership, is because Russians are also extremely anti-Semitic, by the way. Not to touch him, guaranteed his safety. What a bizarre military operation where only ordinary soldiers are dying. Ooh, poor Russians. Then they also say the situation in Kupiansk has seriously escalated in recent days, taking advantage of the Russian armed forces' insufficient consolidation in the city. Amidst bravura reports of its complete capture, the enemy launched a counterattack. Initially, the Ukrainian force, and so on, and so on, and so on. Basically, Russian propaganda Z Telegram channels that have been reporting non-stop for the last I cannot even believe how much time that Kupiansk is done for, that it has been taken, that Ukrainians are there encircled. It has been completely taking over, are now reporting that, whoa, how did this ended up? How did Zelensky made it there? What happened? Was this Israeli government? Was this the aliens? Was this the betrayal from within? It is absolutely incredible. And the best part, obviously, is not that. The best part is that this is where propaganda meets reality. I continue underscoring on this channel that Russians are only good at very one specific thing, is throwing propaganda into your eyes, making fakes, making these maps that people look at, and so on, and distorting public image. This is everything that they're fighting for. Here is, for example, Gerasimov when he was reporting to Putin about the situation in Kupiansk.
Units of the Group West have liberated Kupiansk and continue destroying Ukrainian armed forces formations encircled on the left bank of the Oskol River.
Yeah, so you can see Kupiansk taken completely. Ukrainian armed forces are not able to fight. They're encircled and being destroyed. Or Putin himself talking about this, like, you see what's happening to Kupiansk. This is exactly what's going to happen to every single one of you later on.
The events that unfolded in Kupiansk are bound to be replicated across other crucial sectors of the front line.
The funny part is that with the news that we got right now, right, if you play this message right back at Putin with Ukraine liberating Kupiansk, so to say, then this whole speech takes on a different meaning. Just check this out.
The events that unfolded in Kupiansk are bound to be replicated across other crucial sectors of the front line.
Yeah, we all hope that exactly the events that are happening in Kupiansk will be replicated at the other sectors of the front line. And the most important, there was this general that's supposed to be in charge and guiding this whole operation that reported on the situation around Kupiansk earlier in the month to Putin.
In the Kupiansk sector, assault units of the 68th Motor Rifle Division of the 6th Army liberated Kupiansk.
So, we captured it all?
Affirmative. The city is under our control. Small scattered enemy groups are being eliminated.
Yes, so there you go. Well, the problem with this general is no one can find him. He's gone. So apparently Russians were a little bit shocked that suddenly Ukrainians were able to retake the positions that Russia already fully grasped in their clutch. Obviously, if you follow this channel, you know the situation on the front line much better than anyone in the Russian command. And now the guy just is, by the way, a hero of Russia, I believe, or like a gold star medalist, a general, something like this. Whatever. I think he's going to get another gold star to the window that we're able to eliminate this guy. If he is still alive, I don't know. To be honest, don't care. So I call on everyone that is watching this video to enjoy this moment and just take in all of the joy of Russians being dumbfounded. But more importantly, to our cause, I want you to look at this face, remember this face, and remember the name. This is commander of the Joint Forces Group, Mikhailo Draati, a general. He has been a super renowned general in Ukrainian armed forces, and he is very highly regarded by the people inside of the Ukrainian military. This guy has shown to be a military genius. He has been put in multiple positions over Frontline where the situation was pretty dire, and he has been able to stabilize those situations and even turn them around to a certain extent. The best example was the incursion in the Kharkiv region, which was right north of here. It was, if you remember, during the time when Russians started approaching from this northern side and moving towards Kharkiv region, and everyone was expecting that Russians will just take over and breach towards Kharkiv. And at that moment, Mikhailo Draati came in and took over the command of forces from the local commanders that were actually not preparing defensive positions and were later dismissed and charged even. And Mikhailo Draati was able to stabilize the situation and was able to essentially prevent Russians from getting anywhere in this Kharkiv operation. What they're controlling now is basically everything that Russia was able to capture at that time, and after Mikhailo Draati came in, he was then able to prevent Russians. He has a much longer history that goes back to 2014, but we're not going to be looking at what's happening in the past. More importantly, we need to look at what's happening right now and in the future. Because right now, there's this big push for him. He already was put in command of the Ukrainian ground forces. The problem is it wasn't a high enough position. A lot of people stated that with his desire to change the Ukrainian armed forces, he couldn't do it at the position of the commander of the ground forces because it didn't have the competency, essentially, because of the Ukrainian structure. Since then, he actually, after there was an issue of strikes, I believe, on the training facilities with missiles, and that there was no accountability for those strikes. And again, like, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm misremembering this. But at that time, he said he took responsibility for those strikes, and he got sort of demoted to just be in charge of this specific sector on the front line. And he has been put on the command of this sector of Lima and Kupiansk in command later on in the year. So now he once again showed results on the front line. This is great news for one reason and one reason only. This is going to be very beneficial for the people that are really not liking Syrskyi. The point of the matter is this Mikhailo Draati, as I stated, is a military genius. He knows Russians, he understands Russians, he knows how to fight and win against the Russians. He has demonstrated it time and time and time and time and time again. More importantly, for a very long time, it has been already speculated that he could become the next commander-in-chief of Ukrainian armed forces. And if this indeed happens, especially now that he is able to actually deliver the only major notable results for the Ukrainian armed forces all throughout the year, and don't get me wrong, all of the operations that Ukrainians are doing against Russians, stopping their offensive, really good. But it's also important to deliver the results on the front line for Ukraine so that President Zelensky can work politically, because military and politics, they go hand in hand. You cannot have one without the other. That is why I think the chances of him becoming the next commander-in-chief of Ukrainian armed forces have risen significantly, especially because Zelensky has been involved in the current demonstration of this success. So if this happens, it's going to be a major victory for Ukraine. It's going to be major boost in morale within the Ukrainian military. Mikhailo Draati is very loved, and he's a person that has the vision for Ukrainian armed forces, that can fight and they can defeat and they can win against the Russians. Very important dude. Do not forget him. Importantly, Ukrainians are continuing resisting the Russians and are able to deliver such great results and pushing Russians back even from areas that Putin himself was bragging about capturing. This is all thanks to the Ukrainian armed forces that you help support. Thank you so much for all of the people that are supporting our drone fundraiser for the Ukrainian armed forces. I call on everyone to enjoy what Ukrainian forces are doing, but also, if you can, please participate and help them do more. They need every single cent of help they can get. Let's do our best. And remember, if you're in the United States, you can always just buy yourself some Ukrainian sparkling wine from the importer of the wine from Bakhmut in Ukraine, and they are gladly transitioning part of their revenue from the sales of bottles to the fundraiser. So buy a bottle if you're in the United States. Otherwise, trust in Ukraine, trust in Ukrainian armed forces. Let's continue. In the last video, we talked a lot about the US administration pushing for a bit of a destruction of the world order as we know it. And thankfully, I also stated in the video, and unfortunately some people missed it, but I want to underscore it once again, is that I truly believe and I know that majority of people in the United States do support the transatlantic union that we're having, and they do support that Ukraine wins the war. So the fact of the matter is, Congress actually showed some of their voice, and they supported generally the plan to preserve forces in Europe and preserve also financing to Ukraine of 400 million euros that was allocated by the budget to the Pentagon. This is great news, and I am obviously very warmed by the response from people of United States and their representatives in the Congress. I want to make sure that I say it correctly. Thank you so much for every American that continues supporting Ukraine, and thank you so much to every person in the United States that calls out the specific actions of the administration that are aimed at destruction of our prosperity and union that we were able to achieve thanks to our grandfathers and grandmothers' sacrifice on the battlefields in Europe and other places in the world. Thank you so much for supporting Ukraine. We'll do more. Ukraine is going completely on the roll with fighting corruption. Another scheme has now been uncovered. With this case, the machinations of trying to squeeze out 102 million hryvnias that were aimed to purchase the reactive armor on the Ukrainian tanks. So Ukrainian authorities, Ukrainian anti-corruption agencies are doing their job extremely well. And we've been basically struck by, in the recent weeks, as them were going against all of the biggest perpetrators that you can ever imagine, including in the highest echelons of power. Then very briefly, an advice to all of the people watching, there has been some speculations that United States is looking to provide some security guarantees to Ukraine that would be similar to Article NATO 5. That is not the case. There is a lot of vague wording inside of those documents. More specifically, instead of direct discussion of security guarantees or specific actions, it was more talking about certain like assurances that Ukraine would get. And more importantly, the language of what exactly would be provided by this NATO Article 5 style, that is also not completely the case. Ukraine cannot have Article NATO 5-like, because there's a lot more leeways to this. It's a long discussion, because even Article 5 itself is actually pretty vague, and the only reason it is not as vague is because there's a more mutual cooperation and a lot of other contracts and agreements that are ongoing in between the actual countries participating in NATO. So please do not fall for the fact that's like, oh, US is about to give security guarantees for Ukraine. No, it's not. And finally, we're going to end up with a very positive message. Next year, one of the major countries in Europe is going to have election. This is Hungary. Hungary is important because it's a state that is actively promoting Russian narratives. It's a friendly Russian state. It's an actively hostile state to the whole European project. And Viktor Orban, the pig dolphin himself, he has been dropping in ratings already, but there was this last gap missing for the party in the opposition to actually take on him and hopefully win the election that are coming next year. There has been now a major scandal inside of Hungary with some footage released where in I don't want to say too much because YouTube might ban it. In childcare facilities, leaked footage showed violence against children in those institutions. And this connected to the government actually knowing about these activities happening and obscuring it altogether and not acting on it whatsoever. So this is being taken by Magyar, which is the opposition leader of Hungary, and he is now trying to get people to understand it and push his political message. So the hopes are that this will indeed help the opposition parties in Hungary, and more importantly, my hope that in the end, this will help reform the childcare system in Hungary. I say it from a personal, not really experience, but we had a similar scandal like this discovered in Latvia, the country where I'm from, where we had these foster homes, so to say, for children, and it was journalists that infiltrated those facilities, and they discovered the total abuse against children that was ongoing in these facilities, and it horrified the country to no end, and it was truly magnificent that we were able to then reform the whole system. I really hope that whatever system is causing violence against children that don't deserve it will be corrected. All the best for Hungary. I'm looking forward to see Orban gone. Slava Ukraini, guys. I love you. Trust in Ukraine, support the Ukrainian armed forces, and I will see you next time.